Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Emmanuel. And in our last video, we learned about CoreData and we're able to persist data to our device, right? So whenever we create a note or edit the note, the new value of the updated value is stored on the device. So we're able to do that, but there was something we noticed that just wasn't very nice, right? That can be improved. We noticed that we had to deliberately update our UI whenever changes were made. So we even had a delegate. So if you open up the list notes view controller and you head over to the top, you're going to see that we have a delegate there that basically informs the list notes view controller whenever there's a change from the edit view controller. So all of these things can be changed. And one of the things that CoreData gives us that allows us to be able to basically eliminate all of this code and just have our UI react to changes from the database is NSFetchedResultsController. So NSFetchedResultsController basically notifies us whenever a change has been made, and our UI can simply react to that, right? So rather than having to deliberately check, okay, has a new note been added, then we want to create a new note and add it to our data source, our all filtered list, and we want to reload our table view or insert new row in our table view, or when you want to delete, it just gets confusing, right? So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to eliminate all of those code that's directly specified or informs the table view to react, and we're going to be using the NSFetchedResultsController to basically react to changes in the database. All right, so now the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to get rid of this delegate. So I'm going to get rid of that delegate, and in turn we're going to also get rid of all of this, okay? Because again, we're not going to be directly telling the table view or this data source to reload. Now we have that gone. The next thing we need to do is actually create an instance of the NSFetchedResultsController. So right here, I'm going to create a variable, can make that private, and say this is fetched results controller, and this is going to be of type NSFetched. Oh, so we're gonna have to import CoreData right at the top, and here this is going to be of type NSFetchedResultsController, like that. And we're also going to need to specify the type, which, as you guessed, is notes. So I'm sure that this exists, or I'm going to definitely make it. So I'm just going to force this guy. Then, now that we have this done, the next thing we want to do is right here, I'm going to create a function to, can call this setup fetched results controller. All right. And this is going to allow us to be able to set up our results controller. So now, in order for us to set up this controller, what I want to do is I want to do this in our CoreData model, CoreData Manager rather. Just hold down Command Shift and O and open up CoreData Manager. And right here, we're going to scroll to the bottom where we have our helper functions. I want to create a new function here called create fetched results controller, or create notes. Good. Very long. All right, so anyhow, this is going to create a fetch results controller for our notes, and we're going to return NSFetchedResultsController like that. Now this particular function is extremely similar to our fetch notes. It's going to do the exact same thing that is happening here. So just for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy all of that. I'm going to paste that right here. So basically what we're doing is we're just simply creating a request. All right, so we're creating a request for a fetch request, that is. So here we're going to need to specify the filter again. Just put that over here. This is of type string, optional string, and by default is going to be nil. Good. So now that we have this, we're not going to need to create the NSFetch controller. So we're going to say return and say NSFetchedResultsController. And this takes in a couple of parameters. The first one is the fetch request, which, as you know, we already have right here. So I'm just going to put the request there. Then for the managed object context, you know, we already have our view context. Now for the section name, this allows us to be able to group our results into sections. And since we're using just one section, I'm just going to pass in nil. And then for cache name, it basically allows us to be able to cache the response using this particular name. So for now, I'm just going to leave this as nil until we talk more about caches. So yeah, this is our NSFetch controller, and this is going to be returned to the caller. Let's confirm what this is. Oh yeah, so for your NSFetchResultsController, you're going to need to specify the type of data they're going to be returning. So in our case, it's going to be notes. Okay, so let's build and make sure everything is good. All right, not good, but it's good right here. Awesome. So now let's head back to the list notes view controller. And here we want to get or set our fetch results controller. And this is going to be equal to our CoreData manager dot shared dot create notes fetched results controller, just like that. And we don't need to pass in any filter because we're not doing the search here. We're going to need to do two more things. The first thing we need to do is we need to set the delegate for this, because remember, we're going to get notified whenever a change occurs. So we need to set the delegate to self. So we're going to say fetched results controller dot delegate equals self. And since we're doing this, we're going to need to extend a particular delegate. We're going to need to extend the delegate for the fetch results controller. So I'm going to create an extension here, and let's actually just go ahead and mark this and say ns fetched results controller delegates. Awesome. So this is going to be an extension of list notes view controller, and it is ns fetch results controller delegates. Awesome. So for now, I'm just going to leave the implementation for now. So now that we have that done, let's see, we're going to head back here. And the last thing we need to do whenever we're done with this is we need to perform the fetch. So we're going to say fetched results controller dot perform fetch. And you can see that actually throws. So we're going to need to say try, or you handle it more appropriately. Okay. So that is done. Good. Now, the next thing we need to do is, if you look over here, whenever we run our app, our data that is being displayed is gotten from our filtered notes. So we're going to need to change the data source to not get from the filtered notes, but instead get from a variable or an attribute within the fetched results controller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this guy. And I'm also going to delete this particular variable, but before then, I'm just going to copy this out because we're still going to need it, and get rid of this. Good. Now, actually, let's go ahead and create a function that says refresh count label, and we'll just paste that here. So yeah, whenever we call this function, it simply updates the value of like how many notes are available. Okay. Good. So now we have a lot of errors right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start from our table view delegate. So rather than getting our value from the filtered notes, we want to get our value from the results, fetch results controller. So what we're going to do is we're going to say let notes be equal to results controller, fetch results controller dot sections. So it has sections. So remember, it's grouped in sections, and each section has like the items. So for our own case, we're only dealing with a single section. If not, we'd need to come over here and implement the delegate for a number of sections. And then here we're going to be returning something like fetch results controller dot sections dot count, like this, or then default to 0 or default to 1. Okay, so this is cool. We can do this. Then here, so here we have these sections, and then we're trying to get for section, but this is optional, so you can either safely handle it or be lazy like me during a development project and then just force this. All right. So now that we have this, it's going to get all of the notes in this particular section, and now we can simply return notes dot number of objects, so not count, so dot number of objects. Good. So now we have this done, and we're actually going to use this in a couple of places. So I'm just going to copy that. And we're going to come over to our cellphone row at index path. So right here, you can see also that we're trying to get the value from filtered notes. So what we want to do is we want to change that and instead get it from our fetch results controller. So how do we do that? We're just going to say let note be equal to results controller dot object at index path, just like that. And you can see over here that we have access to our index path, so we're just going to replace that like this, and this is going to give us the notes for this exact index. You can see over here, if you hold down option, you see that we have notes. So with this, you can just go ahead and replace this and just pass in notes. Awesome. So this is actually what I need to copy. I can use this in a few places. All right. So let's go down. So here again, we have filtered notes. And again, like I said, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to replace this and not get from filtered notes, but we want to get from the fetch results controller dot object at index path. So this right here is going to change to notes. Okay. So we go down again, same thing right here in the delete. We change this to notes. And don't worry, we're going to get back to the search. Let's go to the top and see what we have now. Good. So here we have the all notes.count. So we're not trying to do all notes.count. Instead, what we want to do is want to say let count be equal to fetch results controller, and we're trying to get dot sections, and we're going to be getting the 0. So I'm going to force this, and then we say dot number of objects. So this is going to give us the count, so the number of objects in the first section. And here we're just going to replace this with count. We're going to replace this with count, and we're going to make sure that this is called in our view did load right here. And we also want to, and actually, since we're no longer going to be doing this, so fetch from storage, we're not going to be doing this anymore. I'm just going to delete that. So instead, what I want to do is I want to set up our fetch results controllers, because this is what we're going to be using now, right? So now that that is done, whenever this is done, we also want to refresh our count label. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, so this function I'm not going to need anymore, because I don't want to be updating my table view directly. So I'm going to delete that. Then I'm also going to come over to this place where we have our insert all notes. I'm not going to be doing this. I'm not going to be inserting in our table view anymore. I'm only going to create the notes and then send it back, right? I'm not going to be doing anything table view and stuff. Okay, good. Then fetching notes from storage, we're not going to do this anymore. So I'm going to delete that. Deleting notes, we're not going to do this anymore. We're simply going to delete from CoreData, and then we expect our UI to react. All right, so that's why this guy is here. Then let's see, so this guy, all notes, this search notes from storage, we're not even going to do this at all. Instead, we're going to modify, in fact, we're going to get to that in a bit. So we've gotten rid of that. We screw all of these out, table view configurations. So search from storage, we're not going to do this anymore. Instead, we're going to use a single search. So I'm just going to call search, and we're going to pass in search bar dot text. Good. Then in our search right here, what we're going to do, so for this, we're going to default this to an empty string. But for here, rather than filtering to notes, at this point, we want to do a search, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right to the top here where we have the, not this one, set up the fetched results controller. We want to be able to search or want to be able to set up this controller with a filter as well, right? So I'm just going to do this and pass in a nil. So if you're setting up with no filter, it's going to just get all without a filter. But if you're setting it with a search, then it's going to set up the fetched controller with a search, with a filter. All right, so now that we have that, you remember in our, if you go over to the CoreData model, you can see that in our create nodes fetched results controller, we also have a filter. So that's what we're gonna do right here. We're gonna say fetched results controller. Oh, sorry, not there. So here where we have our create nodes fetch result controller, we're gonna pass in an extra parameter and just say filter. Okay, so it's gonna be nil or not nil depending on whatever text you do there. So in our search, what we want to do here is we want to say, okay, if you're trying to filter, if you're trying to search, then we want to call the the setup fetch result controller, and now we want to pass in a filter of query. Otherwise, we want to set up our fetch results controller but with no filter at all, right? So this is just going to get all, while this is going to get all that match a particular filter. Then when we're done, we're just going to reload our table view. All right, so yeah, now that that's done, we can go ahead and delete this guy from here because we're not going to be using our delegates anymore to notify our UI. So just delete all of these things. So you can see that now, basically all we have is whenever an action is performed, we simply just update our core data. So we save or we update or delete or something, come over here, we fetch using the fetch controller, but we're not doing any kind of insert into table view or whatever. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run this application. Okay, so we still have an issue. Oh yeah, so the self, can we remove that? Run this now. And you can see that it actually still brings back. So you can see that the fetch works. It works very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. And ooh, nothing is happening. Why is that? But if I run this, you can see that it actually deleted. So the problem now is that it still wasn't updating. So what we need to do is right at the bottom of the screen, there are a couple of delegates that we need to implement. First one is will change content. So the controller will change content. And here what we want to do is say table view dot begin updates. All right. Then the next one we want to implement is did change content. So after it, this one is will. So after it's done changing, we want to say table view dot end updates. Beautiful. Now finally, and very importantly, the one we want to implement, controller did change index, did change at index. Basically we want the one that has index path, the type, and the new index path. All right. So with this, what we can do is we can say switch type. And in the switch type, there are a couple of cases we can implement. So you can see them. We have insert. So if you insert into the table view, what do we want? Table view dot insert rows at. Now for the index path, we're going to be using the new index path. Index path like that. I'm just going to force that because I'm lazy. And I'm just going to use automatic. So now we're going to go ahead and implement another case. This is going to be, let's say, insert. Let's say delete. This is going to be table view dot delete rows at, and the index path here we're going to use is the index path. All right. So I'm just going to make this automatic as well. Then for updates, we're going to say table view dot reload rows at index path. The index path we're going to specify here is the index path, and I'm just going to use well, let's use automatic or none, whichever one. Then also we're going to implement move, And the reason for this move is, you know how we are sorting based off of like the last updated time. So the move is going to allow it to, so if you update a text, it's going to move it to the top. You're going to see what it looks like. So anyhow, it's going to be table view dot move row at, we're going to be moving row at index path for start to new index path. Wonderful. So I'm just going to go ahead and implement defaults just in case and say table view dot reload data. Awesome. So finally, when we're done with this, we want to make sure that we refresh our count label. So let's go ahead and run this and let's see what we currently have. Okay, so we have this. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to add some text and go back. And you can see that add some text already refreshed. And I'm going to create a new one and say this is a new note. I'm going to go back. You can see we have this as a new note. So now I want to show you the update stuff. So I'm going to click on this and say some more text and go back. You can see how you just move that guy upward. I'm going to create a new one. Yada, yada, yada. Just move. Go back. Let's create another one. Go back. My system is angry. So I'm going to click on this as a new note and add some more text. If I go back, you can see how I just went to the top. So very pretty. And you can see how much code that we got rid of just for us to be able to do this. And it's pretty neat. So now another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to test the delete. So let's try to delete this guy. You can see that it's gone. Let me run it again to make sure we have just 3 items. And that's good. So now let's try the search. So I'm going to try AKF or okay, A space KF. You can see that it's actually searching pretty good. Try to search, it's still good. New notes. So this is basically what we had, but everything is more responsive, is more reactive rather. So we don't have to constantly update our data source or anything. This NSFetchedResultsController just knows when stuff is updated, and we can basically handle that in a single place. So if you have any questions, I hope I didn't move too fast. I hope I didn't confuse you. But if you have questions, just go ahead, leave it in the comment section. I'll definitely respond. And yeah, if you like the video, please hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe and turn on your notifications. Until then, you guys stay safe.